How does the political climate alter the media being presented to us? And in turn, what does that say about us as consumers? This is a question posed by Robbie Collin, chief film critic of The Telegraph, who recently wrote this article called Hollywood's Great Unwokening Has Been Unleashed. In the article, Collin makes the following points regarding the trends of popular films in Hollywood this year and how this year Hollywood has seemed to get less political. We begin with Twisters, a certified hit and spiritual sequel to an all-American classic, which diverts from the expected discussions of climate change and political divides that are expected of a film dealing with issues like erratic weather patterns and ideologically opposed characters, to instead focus on a message of opposed forces uniting in extreme circumstances. Distinctly non-political and non-committal to a particular cause, which, I mean, most of this conversation coming out of this film is the fact that they didn't kiss at the end, so that tells you all that you need to know. Collin marks this as a jumping off point in a year filled with these kinds of non-committed projects, which could have a lot to say, but don't. He cites Inside Out 2, a film actively made under the instruction of being less gay, after the backlash Disney and Pixar received from a mooted same-sex kiss seemingly weaving its way through the cracks in the box office disaster Lightyear in 2022. Inside Out 2, a pivotal film for Pixar, turned out to be the highest grossing animated film of all time, which of course can't be directly attributed to its non-political nature, but the fact that this film was specifically given this instruction to work with while it was being made is interesting nonetheless. Civil War, a film with clear and unavoidable political overtones about opposing factions in a dystopian future America, chooses to instead focus on the journey of its central characters and the effects documenting these kinds of things has on these people, rather than delving into reasoning behind why these factions are even warring in the first place. The film received criticism for this, which director Alex Garland called idiotic. Most notably though, Collins discusses the Donald Trump villain origin story The Apprentice, starring Sebastian Stan, a film which was met with cease and desist letters from the soon-to-be president's team for its apparently negative interpretation of him. The film struggled to find a distributor as well as a place on streaming services in the aftermath of its cinematic release, with star Sebastian Stan not even being featured on Variety's Actors on Actors series, despite being planned initially, due to the fact that none of the other actors' publicists wanted them to speak to Stan about an extremely divisive political leader in an election year. And if that doesn't paint Hollywood's resistance to getting political these days clearly, I don't know what does. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything Collins' article states. I do believe these films do in some way have political overtones or undertones. Every form of media in some way, shape, or form is political in its messaging. They just are. But this seemingly dramatic shift away from actively promoting your films as such is something to take note of. What's even more interesting about this is how this landscape stands in stark contrast to the ideology present in Hollywood in the last decade or so, where woke filmmaking has very much been a part of the agenda. Some key examples for me would be 2017's Get Out, a film which had its ending changed by director Jordan Peele to provide a more hopeful outlook on the future following Donald Trump's first election. 2020's Promising Young Woman does the same, providing the happy ending to a story about victims of sexual abuse which is so often denied to those in real life. Even last year's two big hits, Barbie and Oppenheimer, were both massively political looks at the dehumanization of women in the former and the need for control of nuclear arms in the latter. So, what has changed in the last year that this year's big hitters are so opposed to those of the last few years? Perhaps audiences want more escapism in their media during an age of political strife, and while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, it does perhaps warrant a larger discussion surrounding the role of the media and whether its purpose is to simply entertain and distract or to educate and inform its audiences. How much does filmmaking need to reflect the real world? Are people beginning to feel preached to by these kinds of political films, causing a change in viewing patterns and therefore a shift in how filmmakers are catering to the taste of modern audiences? This is of course to simply talk about the more popular films of the year. There are plenty of other films out there that have openly addressed pressing political matters like The Substance, I Saw the TV Glow, and of course The Apprentice, for example. But as Collins' article states, it's interesting to note regardless how the biggest films of the year have strayed from that path, and whether that is an indicator of whether Hollywood is truly entering its post-woke era. Personally, I hope not. I feel art is way more important than ever during times of political strife, and especially in the kind of dangers facing people's fundamental human rights today, I feel people using their art to get these issues across as important and paramount in discussions is priority over sitting back for your latest fix from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not everyone's like that, which I understand, and I feel a lot of this dilemma over the changing face of cinema has to do with the fact that the superhero genre, no longer having the tight grip on the industry that it had in the last decade plus, has left Hollywood going through a bit of an identity crisis in a way that isn't too dissimilar to the political climate of the world today. In a year full of regimes being usurped and the divide between political ideologies feeling more apparent than ever before, of course this is going to be reflected through contrasting patterns in media and especially in filmmaking. Entering 2025, it will be extremely interesting to see if this pattern kind of falls away and what the general public decides by what they watch, what the role of the media actually is, and in turn, how that shapes the popular media of the years to come. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comment section below, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this. You can follow me on social media here, and you can read the original Telegraph article I spoke about today in the description below. I'll have a link to it down there, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, bye-bye.